Hello there, welcome to the continuation of our JavaScript tutorial. In today's video, we're going to be talking about JavaScript array iteration method. Now, when we say array iteration, we're looking at a situation where you want to, go through the whole elements in an array. We already know that an array is a special type of variable that can hold many values. Now, if you have an array that contains, let's say, 10 items or 20 items, and you want to, either check through this item or you want to do something with those items, then you need to iterate. So the process of going through the array such that you make use of each item, you go through each element of the array, and then either you do something with the element or you add something to, or you do an operation or you perform an operation with that element. We call it array iteration. So we're going to be looking at so many methods. We're going to just pick some few methods quickly, and we look at how they work. Some of those methods you often may not use them, but it's good to know such and such and such method exists. Okay, so the first method we're going to be looking at today is the for each method. So for each method, again, array dot for each. So that means you already have your array. If your array is cars, for example, now you now say cars dot for each. If your array is let's say snacks, you say okay, snacks dot for each. Now, how does the for each method work? The for each method calls a function. So there's what we call a callback function. So that means you supply a function to the for each that okay, for each of these array element now, supply this element to this function so that that function can perform an operation on each of those elements. So that function is known as a callback function. So the function works on the element once, right? So look at this example here. We have a function here. This is our callback function. The name of our callback function is my function, right? Now, the function takes 3 arguments, but it has only one compulsory argument, so the other 2 arguments can be ignored. So it takes the value of the element, the index of the element as the position, and the array itself. So now look at this. Numbers dot for each, then my function. So this my function is a reference to this function here. In essence, what we are saying is that the function here has been passed to the for each function as a callback function. So what for each is gonna do now is that it will start going through the elements of the array, right? So it will pick 45. What is the value of 45? 45, so 45 will be the value. What is the index of this 45? 0. So 0 will be the index. And then the array itself, so the entire array again will be forwarded to it. So this is very useful. So look at this example now. We have a variable declared as txt and is set to an empty string. Then we set numbers dot for each. Then we pass in each element of this array to this function, right? Now what is the function doing? It said txt is equal to txt plus value. So it is merely concatenating the elements to txt, and then it's follow it up with what? A break, so that at the end you have 45, next line 4, next line 9, next line 16, next line 25. Okay, so let's try this example, exactly what we are looking for, like this. Okay, so that's just what the callback function is doing. Note that the function takes 3 arguments: the item value itself, the item index, and the array itself, right? So the entire array will also be passed with, so that there are situations where you will want to make use of those array. However, The example above uses only the value parameter. So this can be written as what? Instead of passing in the index, comma, then the array itself in the function, you can try to write your function very simple in this format. Let's say function, my function value. So the only item, the only argument that will be passed to this function is the value itself, which is 45, then 4, then 9, then 16, then 25. So that since you know you are not gonna use the other two arguments, but if you know maybe you are gonna use the index, then you want to what? Say value comma index. If you know you are going to need the array itself, then you say value comma index comma array. Okay, so the next function we're going to look at is the map function. Now the map function is not very different from the for each function, but however the map function method creates a new array by performing a function on each array element. So for example, you say numbers is equals to this array, numbers 2 is equals to number 1 dot map. So at the end, it's gonna pass each element in this array to what? To this function, and then at the end result is gonna be a new array that will be stored in number 2. Now watch this. Look at this. 45 is being passed to this function. What does it do with it? It multiplies by 2. What that means is that your new array is now gonna be 90, 8, 18, 32, and 50. Okay, so that's what number 2 is gonna be a new array of those what items. So number 2 is gonna be a new array of each of these elements multiplied by 2. It's as simple as that. Okay, again, so this is the same callback function. Let's look at it. So you can see that now it takes each element here, passes it through the callback function, which is this, and then it multiplies it by 2. And so the new array, which is numbers 2, which we are now putting as the inner HTML of this element demo, which is this p tag here, is now gonna be the each of this element multiplied by 2. So 45 we have 90, 8, 18, 32, and 50. So the map function, the only difference between the map and the array dot for each is that the map does not act on the original array, it rather creates a new one. The next function we're going to be looking at is the filter function. The filter function also creates a new array, but this time you are giving it a test, right? So it's like you are trying to filter out some of the elements that meets certain position, or that are able to pass the test, certain requirement. Okay, for example, now look at this. You have a variable, an array. Okay, then you said variable over 18 is equals to numbers.filter my function. So numbers.filter, the filter method now is, we have a callback function called my function. What is my function doing? The values are being passed to my function, and then my function is merely return if the value is what? Greater than 18. So it's gonna return at the end, it will pass in each element of this array, right? And then it will only return 45 because 45 is greater than 18. It's 25. These are the only two that we're gonna return because they are the only two that are greater than what? 18. That's the function. So that's the filter function. It helps you to what? To pick out some of the elements in an array that meets, you know, the requirement, or that pass the test. Okay. Then the next function is the reduce function. The reduce method runs a function on each array element to produce a single value. So the reduce function is a way of, doing something like summation on the elements of the array, or maybe multiplication. At the end, the reduce function always returns a value, and then it does not affect the original array. Okay, so let's see. For example, now you can see the reduce function always returns one value. So you can use it for things like summation and things like you are concatenating the entire elements of the array. So in this example, it's used to sum all the elements of the array. So we have an array set to this, and then we say var sum is equal to numbers dot reduce my function. So each element of this array will be passed to this function, and then it's gonna have a total. So it's gonna say return total plus value. All right. Okay. So but the total is also an argument of what? An argument of my function. So value, index, and then we have the array. So it takes 4 arguments. Okay, so look at it. The total, the initial value, or the previously returned value, the item value, the item index, and the array itself. So it takes 4 arguments. Then we also have the reduce right function. So the difference is that the reduce function starts from the left of the array, which is here, 45, and then walks through to the right? So which is just the difference between the reduce right and the reduce function. Okay. So the reduce function can also accept an initial value. For example, now you remember we have the total. So the total now, 100 is gonna come in place of total, which is the initial value. So now what you are saying is that I have 100 and I want to add all these elements to it, right? So you can have an initial value. Okay, the reduce right. So the reduce right starts from the right to left. It does exactly the same thing as the reduce. At the end of the function, it returns just one value to you, like that. So the array.every, the every method checks if all array values pass a test. So at the end of this function, you're gonna have a true. So that's what the function does. It checks through each element, and then it tells you if all the element passes the test, right? So it checks through all the elements and tell you that all the element has passed this condition. Of course, we know that 4 is gonna fail, 9 is gonna fail, 16 is going to fail. So at the end, the function will return a false to you. So this function always returns what? A Boolean value. Again, the arguments of the function are the value, the index, and the array itself. Okay, then we have array.sum. Now the sum is quite different from the every. The every checks true all, but the sum will return a true if at least one of the array or some of the array has passed the test. But the every expects each and every element in the array to pass the test before it will return a true. But the sum, on the other hand, once it finds out that one element, at least one element has passed the test, it's gonna return a true to you. Okay, so it's like the and the all operators. Now the index of. The index of returns the index of a particular element. For example, you have an array like this containing apple, mango, apple, orange, apple, mango, and then you said var a is equal to fruits.index of apple. Of course, a is gonna return what? 0. The index is gonna be 0. But you might not want to show your end users zeros. You might end up adding a 1 to it, so that whatever index that have been returned, you add a 1 to it. So for example, if you say you can see this, we have a variable called fruits. We set it to an array. Now say var a is equal to fruits.index of apple, and then document dot get element by id demo dot inner html. Apple is found in position a plus 1, so that's position 1. So your users, of course, who does not know programming, will be more comfortable with saying that the element is found in position 1 than telling them the element is found on position 0. All right. So that's index of. Then we have the last index of. So the last index of gives you the index of the last occurrence of that of your parameter. So for example, you say last index of apple. So apple appears in two places, index 0 and index 2, right? So the last index of will return 2 for you, like that. So we have the find method. The find method returns the value of the first array element that passes the test function. So the find method returns the value. Contrary to array.sum and array.every, returns a boolean value, that's a true or a false. But the find method returns the value of the first element that passes the test. So for example, you can see this. We have a number which is set to an array. Var first is equal to number.find. Then the function, the value that is greater than 18. So it will return the first value that is greater than 18, and that is 25. Okay. Array.find index. So the find index method returns the index just like the find, but except that instead of returning the value, it rather returns the index. So for example, if you say you have this array and then you say var first numbers.find index my function, then the return function goes through each element of the array and checks which of the value is greater than 18 and then returns the index. So this 0, 1, 2, and then 3. So it's gonna return 3 because 25 is on position 3 and 25 is greater than 18. Okay, so see you in the next video.